The space naming command relies on the associated relationship between the MEP spaces in the architectural rooms. When an MEP space is placed, Revit gives the MEP space the default name space and a default sequential number in relationship to the order the MEP space was placed. However, when we look at the properties of an MEP space, it sees the room name and number of the associated architectural room. So to automatically renumber and rename your MEP spaces, we will use the space naming command. Located in the ribbon on the Analyze tab on the Spaces and Zones panel, the Space Naming button will launch the Space Naming dialog box. Within the dialog box, you're able to rename your MEP spaces in the Revit model to the architectural room that the space is associated with. While in the Space Naming dialog box, you have the option of transferring the names and numbers, the names only, or the numbers only, along with all levels, or you can select specific levels. In this case, we will select names and numbers and select all levels. Once you have ran the space naming command, there still may be spaces that are named space. In this case, this is because the architectural room name and number are classified as unoccupied, which means there is not an architectural room in that area. This is common in void spaces or mechanical chases or column wraps. On the second floor, the MEP spaces did not rename and number either because an architectural room has not been placed yet. So in a situation like this, we can manually renumber and rename the MEP spaces to what the space will eventually be named and numbered. So let's renumber this space to 200 and rename it to mechanical room. And we'll renumber this space to 201, and we'll rename it to plumbing room. Now moving back down to the first floor and looking at the names and numbers in the open office, we will notice that Revit put a dash number after the MEP space names and numbers. The reason is because all three of these spaces are associated to the same architectural room, and since every MEP space number must be unique, Revit has to distinguish between the spaces. Though the -1, -2, and -3 make each space unique, the information is not very intuitive for load reports. So we're going to rename this space to Open Office North Exposure, and this space to Open Office Interior, and this space to Open Office West Exposure. And there's a similar situation related to the lobby spaces. Because there are two spaces associated to the lobby room, Revit put a -1 and -2 after the names and numbers. So for clarity in the load report, we'll rename this space to Lobby Interior and this space to Lobby West Exposure. One thing to note, though it's not required, on larger projects, it is good practice to rename and renumber mechanical specific spaces like mechanical chases or void spaces or column wraps to reflect what the MEP space represents.